I read my first ebook.
So we're live, by the way.
Huh?
We're live, by the way.
Are we?
So you read your first ebook?
Yeah.
So a book on an electronic device?
On an iPad.
And?
I was in Norway, and in the middle of nowhere, and I took with me a book from Murakami, a Japanese writer, 600 pages, and I thought that's enough for a week. And it was a fantastic book. So it was finished on Wednesday. I thought I have to read part 2 also, but I didn't bring it. So then I thought, okay, I'm going to,
I'll download it.
I downloaded it, and then to my surprise, I liked it very much. The way,
Is that on an iPad?
It was on an iPad, yeah.
Okay.
So a book of 600 pages is very heavy, and now it's just the weight of an iPad. And I liked it quite a lot. And I could adjust the strength of the lighting, the letters. I made it negative, so I had black pages with grey letters. So
I do that.
It was kind of, I
don't read very often, but I have one book that I'm reading because I was instructed or asked by somebody if I would read a book, and I don't read, period. I mean, full stop, I don't read. But I said I would read this book, and I bought it about 3 months ago, and I've read 20% of it so far. And every time I go back to it, I have to go back for 4 or 5 pages to get back into it so I can remember again. So I'm terrible. I can't read. I'm useless at reading.
One of the funny things also is the fact that when I read on my iPad, somewhere somebody knows on which page I stopped, and if I continue on my iPhone, it remembers also he was at page 600 something.
So a year ago, before you had ever done that, if someone had said to you, "Hey, have you ever done a digital book?" Your view would have been me knowing you.
Of course.
You'd have gone. You'd have gone. Oh, fuck.
True.
God. I like books.
True.
And
I like bookstores, and I like to talk with people in the bookstore about I read this, and all that kind of stuff. And now it's online.
So do you see yourself buying more books online?
I don't know. I think when I make a longer trip, it might be sort of.
You can carry any number with you, and it doesn't.
Yeah, I'm not going to read many books because I'm a slow reader. Okay. But then it's lighter in an airplane, and it's lighter in your, So
okay,
maybe.
Then. So this wasn't this just started as it should do, and just random, and so I kind of need to at least give you at least a tiny introduction, right?
Good.
So this guy is Sjaak. Can you say your surname?
Can you do it?
Ramakers?
No. Ramakers.
Ramakers. Okay.
You never learn.
I'll be here 10 years before I can do that. But anyway, and yeah. So basically, so you're a photographer.
Yeah.
Portrait photographer.
Yeah.
And instantly, as we got to know each other over the last year, and we'll talk about how we did that later, but instantly it occurred to me, with you talking, that you are one of the few people, and I want to apologise to other people that I have met, and I didn't realise this, it's just that obviously the conversation didn't lead to this point, is that you are what I would call a vocational photographer, okay?
Can you translate that in normal language?
Well, I'm struggling to remember another photographer that I've met that wasn't something else before, didn't do some other profession before.
All right.
So you're vocational.
Yeah.
When you said, how old was you when you made your first camera? You said you made a little camera or something when you was really young or something.
My first camera I got when I was 14.
Yeah.
So because then I was kicked out of school and started to work in a dark room in a photography show.
I didn't know you were kicked out.
Yeah, really, yeah.
Just don't come back.
No, really. That's because you want to know why.
Of course, that's why I'm asking.
Okay. You remember the old days in, how do you say that in English? Okay, you made stone print on stone. How do you call that?
An etching where you put paper on top and you put the crown. Okay, yeah.
So, okay, that stone was quite expensive. And if the printing was done, you could use the stone again. And then you had to sort of get rid of this picture on the stone. And you could do that by your hand, but it had to be very graduate. And so there was a machine, a big sort of basket, and you put a stone in. You put some special grinding powder in it, and special ceramic balls, a sort of 100 or so. And this this machine started moving, and after a day or two, it took away the whole picture. Maybe if you haven't seen it.
No,
These
I
balls,
get what you mean. Yeah.
they were made from a special sort of natural stone. I don't know. And I was on a school for graphic things, and I stole a handful of these balls, and we had a staircase in the school. It was a very old building, going this way, going that way, going this way, going that way, and I found out that if I dropped one of these balls, it came back almost as high as where it started from.
Okay.
So, and then you heard boing, but if you took a smaller one, it heard boing. If you took a, and then I started to drop it on the stair, so it went down by itself, and it was kind of music thing.
Yeah,
it was beautiful,
okay, yeah.
and I was really enjoying it. And then the director of the school, he came up and he said, "I never want to see you again because I don't like this." Stupid. But there were, of course, a lot of things happened before. So, but this
was
was
what we call the straw that broke
yeah,
the
right,
camel's
right,
back.
right,
Yeah.
right. That was it.
Yeah.
So
I just not to like gate crash your story, but I got kicked out of my first secondary school when I was 12. I was asked. They called my parents up and asked to take me away, so I had to change after being there for only about 4 months or something, and then I had to go to a different secondary school.
Yeah, right,
it was like
right.
we don't want him here.
no,
Do you know why?
no.
The deputy head teacher. The deputy head teacher was also. He stood in for the religious education because I went to a Catholic school, religious school, and and I'm about as satanic as you can get, and so it's just oil and water really, and so I asked questions, and I just remember that my normal religious education teacher not being there, he was sick or something, so the deputy head stood in, and he was just a huge guy, and he was talking about some story from the Bible, and it was, you know, Cain and Abel and all that kind of stuff, and so you're going through it, and there's like Adam and Eve, they have 2 sons, Cain and Abel, Cain kills Abel, then we turn the page, and suddenly Cain's got a family, they've been banished from the garden and stuff, and to a 12-year-old, that's like crazy. So obviously, as a normal 12-year-old, you ask a question.
Yeah.
Well, if there's only one female on the planet, Adam and Eve, a couple, and one of the sons kills the other one, and then they all get banished, how did all the other people suddenly arrive? Where did they come from? Did Cain sleep?
That's what we call religion, yes.
Did Cain then sleep with his mother? Because there's nowhere. Where did all the other people come from? And all I did was ask the question. But that was the straw that broke the camel's back. But they used that as a way of saying I was a really serious negative influence on everyone, and so it was over.
I remember when I was a young guy, also from Catholic background, and we were having the prayers in Latin.
Yeah.
My Latin wasn't very good when I was 10, and so I asked one of the priests one day, what am I singing actually? And then he said, leave that to us. And that for me, that started...
We'll translate it for you.
No, it was not necessary that you knew what you were singing.
Yeah, the idea of blind faith isn't something.
But the funny thing is now I'm a fanatic yoga person. How do you call that?
Yeah.
And there is one form of yoga called Ashtanga, and before the lesson starts, you stand up all together, and then you say a sort of mantra in Sanskrit.
Yeah.
Sanskrit, how do you call it?
Yeah.
And so after the first lesson I took, I asked the teacher, what am I saying actually? What are you saying actually? Because I couldn't understand it. And then she said, well, there's a very nice website and you can look it up. There's a good translation. So I looked it up and I saw it and I thought, I'm not going to sing that. So now I respect what the rest is doing, so I'm just standing there, shutting my mouth, and but I'm not going to say that kind of things. So that's how it works.
So you're kicked out of school, or asked nicely or not nicely to leave at 14. And was it then you got a camera, or did you have an interest in photography? I think you were telling me that
no, I wasn't.
When did you get an interest in photography growing up then?
Oh, it was quite. I am from how do you say that, working class background, and none of in our surrounding, nobody was going to university or one of these kind of things, and so everybody was sort of working, and so after primary school, what are you going to do? I didn't know. And then there were, how do you call that, open days on some schools. And I went to this graphic school just because I thought, well, I have to go somewhere. So I went there and I saw all these professions like reproduction photography, somebody behind the printing press, somebody, how do you say that, making letters to words?
Yeah.
How do you call that, setter, we call it?
Yeah, typesetter.
Yeah, right. That kind of, all these kind of things. So I came home and I said to my parents, I said, well, I would like to go to that school because all that kind of professions I liked, and I still do. Because if you see somebody binding a book, is that?
Yeah, that's right.
If somebody's doing that very nicely, I think it's nice to do that.
Absolutely.
And more of that kind of things. Yeah, really. Yeah. So there were a lot of these professions that you could learn there. And I thought, well, okay. So my father went there or wrote a letter, I don't know. And so they said, but what kind of direction he wants to go? I don't care. I didn't know. So they made a sort of test for within the possibilities of the school. And then they said, he has to be a photographer because his feeling for color is very good, which is not true.
Because you do black and white, right?
Yeah, preferably. But so I came home and I said to my dad, well, photography. He said, oh no, because my grandfather, his father-in-law, had a photography small studio in a village near Utrecht, and he knew what kind of life this man had. He was hanging above this chemical stuff his whole life and developing pictures for amateurs, and he didn't want his son to be there. So he went to that school and he said, I don't want my son to be a photographer. And then this teacher or something, he said, "You're missing a very big chance because he has a lot of talent." And then my father thought, "Oh,
Cool.
okay, okay, become a photographer."
Cool. Cool. And that was at what age?
And then I was 13.
13.
And after 1 year, and I learned the basic things there, like developer, fixing stuff. You know how these reproduction cameras were these huge things. It has something to do with photography, but it has nothing to do with creativity. And we were sort of pushed or motivated to also work, try to get a normal camera, a small one, to use the processes that you learned on school to make your own pictures. And I didn't have a camera, and we didn't have at home. We were not very rich, so we didn't have money enough to buy a camera. So I had to try to get a camera. How do you do that? How do you? Yeah, okay. So I started to think about it, and I sent a letter to Gevart. You remember them?
Aqua Gavart, yeah.
No, Gevart.
Gavart.
Gevart was.
They were before they joined with Aqua.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a Belgian company from somewhere Antwerp.
Yeah.
And I wrote them a letter that I was at that school and that I was trying to make my own pictures, but I didn't have money for a film and all that. Do you maybe have some film rolls, the 120 format, for maybe they are outdated or that kind of things? So there came a load of films, hundreds of films with almost the date, you know, and a lot of printing paper in stupid sizes, like small 6x6 centimeter with this, how do you call that, the sides cut out and this.
What, really?
So
I don't know. Yeah.
Kartelrandje,
Yeah. Okay.
funny kind of thing. So thousands of sheets of that paper, and I started to. We didn't have a darkroom at home, so I went under the blankets in the night, and I had some black paper stolen from the school, and I counted the sheets of paper, and made packages of it with 100 sheets, and then I sold it for a very small amount to other students at the school. And that's the way I got money to buy my first camera.
Which was?
A Franca. It's, how do you say that? It's a foldable 6x6 centimeter.
Comes out the front. You look down on the top, or?
No. You just had a normal viewfinder, and only so you could, fold it, and with a normal 80mm lens, and just no light meter, not just basic.
But at that point in time, though, did you kind of have any inkling or an understanding that it's what would finance your life, that you'd be able to turn an interest into that? So what was the very first job you did with a camera where you held out your hand and someone gave you money? Do you know what I mean? Where you did it as a financial transaction?
They were just the first money I earned with
first job you did.
No, there was not a job.
Okay.
I started because I needed money for another camera. I wanted to buy a Rollei, twin-eyed reflex thing. Yeah. So I needed money again. So I used this collapsible camera, how do you call it, to make pictures. I had only money for one film roll, 12 exposures a week. And so that's one thing that's very nice, because there because if it only has 12 shots, and you know that after the 12 it's over, and I had a whole weekend, then you start to really wait until you push your button. You know, now we have this, what I call shutter diarrhea, click, 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 which is, I think, bullshit. But then you really were looking, seeing, pushing the button. So I still have these negatives. If I see them, they all had a very good exposure, and they were all sharp, and they were all exactly the way I wanted it. So that's a way of learning. And then I started to send pictures to, how do you say that? How do you say that? Where you can win a prize. You send your picture and other people.
Oh, competition.
Competition, that's the word. And I won a lot of them. So, but it was only then we didn't have euros, but guilders. So then you won the prize of 25 guilders, but that was a lot of money. And so that's the way I collected money to buy a better camera.
Right. And you were still living at home at this time?
I was?
Still living at home?
Yeah. I was 14, so okay.
Okay.
And that's the way it continued. And then after 2 years, I was kicked out of this photography shop because my boss, asshole, he was jealous on the fact that I was winning these competitions.
Right.
And sometimes I had this article in the local newspaper that I did win this, and he was trying to find an excuse to get rid of me. It's a pity that he's dead. I would love to go to him and tell him what I was thinking of him. So I was kicked out of that.
Okay.
And then I came in the local newspaper, Utrecht's Nieuwsblad.
Ah, okay.
And then I was 16, and I started to work there on the making the what's the cliche in English?
Cliche, no idea.
The thing that is sort of plastic thing, and then you could, on this plastic you made the picture, and that was the thing that was going to the printing press. How do you say that?
Plate.
A plate, yeah. Maybe you
printing
call it
plate.
Yeah, okay. There were machines then, German machines, okay. and they were like a scanner.
That's what I used to do before I became a scanner operator. I was 16. I used to make plates.
Okay,
and take them down to the printing company, and
well, that's what I also did for the newspaper.
Yeah,
but
that would be a different type of printing plate. Because you said it was plastic, because plastic. That I can't even remember the name.
It was like a photocopier.
Gravure, it's gravure, and I did litho, and I only did probably 2% of my work on that substrate on that plate. Okay. And all of mine was metal, photographic, litho printing is what I did mostly.
Okay. Now, but this was more modern.
But gravure was really specific. It was very different to all the different types of printing there are.
Yeah, of course. We only had one type of printing.
Yeah.
There was the press where the newspaper came from.
Yeah.
So, and this was like a copier. You put the picture on a glass plate, and there was a light going and scanning the picture, and that came up, and there was a sort of needle, or how do you say that, and that made holes in this plastic.
The depth of the dot, like in litho, when you want to make a very light version of a color, say a light tint of grey, the dot physically becomes smaller.
Yeah, right.
But in gravure, what it is, it's the depth of the hole in the plate means it can only contain less ink or more ink. Right. So if you want it to be really dark black, then it would be very, very deep.
Yeah. And bigger.
But all the dots or the cells that make up the picture, the pixels you could call them, they're all exactly physically the same size.
Right.
So
and that's what I did. there,
Yeah.
and it was sort of boring job. But in the
Yeah.
meantime, because when this machine was doing that, there was nothing to do for me.
Yeah.
So there were, and that took maybe 20 minutes or so. So I could go to the dark room and develop my own films or print my own prints on the paper from the newspaper. You know. So and then I was doing my own thing there as well. It was all right. Everybody was okay. And then there were journalists seeing my own pictures, my free pictures, and they said, "Oh, do you also do that?" Yeah, but it's private. And I said, "No, but we are starting a sort of series of testing of cars, for instance. Can you do that?" Because the other photographer, were two photographers there, they were just saying, "Okay, put a car there, click, ready." And I was from a different way of thinking. I said, "Okay, let's put a car this way or that way." It took much longer, but it was looking nicer as well.
A bit more creative.
So that's the way I really sort of was sucked into this kind of photography. And then we were a small newspaper, local newspaper, where I think we had 40 people working there, three photographers, and the rest were, journalists in sports and in what have you. And people who started working at that newspaper, when they got a new job with a magazine somewhere, quite often they called me. "I'm working now for this magazine. Can you maybe on a free day, on an off day you're having, make some pictures for me?" So slowly I was getting into that world.
Right,
So
okay.
it was.
So I just want to show something actually now, because it's just something. This is your website, obviously.
Yeah, but I have to say to the public that it's quite old already. Who's that guy?
So, because I've gone through a lot of them, and a lot of the people here would be local, right? So I wouldn't know who they are. There was a couple of people I know their names. So
this one maybe.
This is one of yours, right?
Yeah.
So when you're in this, your very first job, and you're in this newspaper, and you're making these plastic plates and stuff, if somebody at that point in time said, "Come here," and whispered in your ear, how long ago was this? This would have been a while ago, because he looks quite young there. So, but that would have been in your future. And if someone said, with a crystal ball, you'll be flown around the world, and because my guess is, did he come to you or did you go to him?
I did go to him.
Yeah, you had to go to him. So would you have even believed that that would have happened to you in 1,000 lifetimes, let alone your lifetime?
I would. How do I say that? I would not think that it wouldn't happen. I believed in possibilities. So if you then would have asked me, how many countries do you think you're going to visit in your life? I wouldn't have said, no, maybe 2 or 3, Belgium and England, or no. Why not?
No, I mean, it's obviously everything is full of possibility, and you wouldn't discount it. But realistically, what would you expect? Okay, so all I'm saying is your expectation of. Did you ever contemplate the expectation of what your life was going to be in a long-term view?
No,
right, okay.
I never did.
Okay.
I did. I was sure. I only had one possibility, to be a photographer. And then because I didn't have any education in another field.
Right, okay.
If I need a screw to hang a picture on, I ask one of my colleagues who has this machine
All those things,
and who is more handy than me. So the only thing I can do, 2 things. I'm a reasonable photographer, and I can park my car very good in the reverse. That's are the only two things that I'm good in.
And then the rest you just get help.
Yeah, and I'm very, I know how to get help.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's, there is, for instance, a guy who helps me sometimes with Photoshop.
Well, maybe we should actually talk about that a little bit, because it is one of life's sliding door moments, really. And I use that term a lot because life really does hang sometimes in milliseconds of opportunity, and the path you're on can go left or right, or sometimes in a whole bunch of different directions. And which one you actually find yourself taking isn't a cognitive choice. It's just circumstances force you into a particular direction. You don't know that until later and you look back. But I remember at the cinema where I used to come, I don't know how many years ago now, probably about 8 years ago now, I started coming.
I think it's longer.
No, I mean, I've been coming to Holland to work for about 12, 14, maybe 15 years, in the days with Adobe and Apple and all that lot, and Nikon and things. And so I was coming to Holland a lot. I mean, probably every week or maybe every 2 weeks I'd be in Holland for a few days somewhere doing something for somebody. And then when I then set up my own consultancy, I guess you can call it, my own business, doing it independently, we used to rent the Louis Haarloper,
One day
Stepper, or whatever. Anyway, this beautiful old police station turned into a cinema. And we used to hire it, and then it would be full of photographers and retouchers, and we'd come and do our own lectures and stuff. And then I remember, and then basically we probably did that 3 or 4 times in that venue. And then fast forward, then I end up moving to Holland, and then I'd made the decision to come here without knowing where I was going to stay. And then obviously I left it in the hands of my friends here, and then my main friend Kjell here knows Jeroen, and Jeroen's your IT guy, and then he's working with you, and then I get a phone call in the evening, go and have a look at this website, tell us what you think about this apartment, and it's your apartment. And it comes via Jeroen, who just happens to see a builder walking upstairs or something. Yeah. And then I then even speak to you, because I speak to you on the phone before I come over here, because I don't even come over and view it. I just go, yeah, I'll take it. It's fine. Anywhere, I'm okay in a box under a canal, you know, under a bridge. And then it wasn't until I came here and I met you, and I then went, fuck, you look familiar. You look familiar. And it took us to meet and talk and have coffee a few times, and I went,
it's you.
Haarloper, Louis, you came up to me at one of my early seminars there, and you came up to me and you told me you're a portrait photographer and you fly all over, and you asked a few questions, and I remember it was open-ended and maybe something would happen or something, I don't know. And then you joined the website, and then fast forward about, 8 years or something, I'm then living in your attic.
Yeah.
It's
how stupid can it be?
It's
I mean,
bizarre.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. And then it was really odd for me when I moved here, because I'm so familiar with the place, but then it was a real moment of kind of, this is odd. I'm walking past this building where I used to fly in, go there, have a quick drink and then leave again. And now I walk past it every day. And and if somebody had told me when I was giving seminars in that police station, in 8 years' time, you're going to be living just down the road, I'd have gone, what?
Yeah, come on.
What? To get real? That'd be stupid. I'm never going to choose to do that. You know, why would I do that? You know, I like the place, but I'm never going to live there. Or, no, I wouldn't have been closed to it from an opinion point of view, because I really like it here. I wouldn't have come here if I didn't. But yeah, that's going to be in my future. With all the other things in my life that I would have thought have been restrictive to stop me doing that, I'd never have thought that I'd go, yep, I'm going to Holland. And then, yes, I'm going to Holland, and then I'm going to be renting an apartment from somebody that is a member of my website, and then me and you are going to sit there at weekends and drink drinks and do Photoshop work.
Now, if I tell colleagues about this story, the fact that you're living up above my studio, they say, "Come on now."
Yeah, yeah. Prove it.
Yeah, really. And yeah, that's so funny. That's so funny. Yeah.
So, the apartment is quite is an open bedsit type of apartment. We call it a bedsit. There's no walls between the rooms, so that was your office and your dark room. So was the dark room the bedroom or the?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking.
I had a studio downstairs, and then later, 2 years later, I bought this apartment up there. It was an apartment with a kitchen, bathroom, and everything, but I needed a dark room, and I needed sort of an office. So I got rid of all the apartment stuff and had a dark room built there.
So did you develop all your own work then?
Oh yeah.
All of your own work?
No, not only black and white.
Right. So anything that wasn't black and white, you used a lab.
Yeah.
But black and white, you did yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Later, I started to go to a lab for developing the films.
Yeah.
Because that was more stable when they did it than when I did it, and so I did that, and there was a period that it was more color than black and white because the magazines I was working for wanted color. Yeah. So I went to the lab, let's say, at least once a day. So and then when you had black and white, I was okay. They did it also, and that was okay. But printing, I did myself to a certain format, that a certain size. That I didn't do the real big things. So
right. Yeah. No. That's makes sense.
Yeah. Well, there was a sort of a way to learn a lot of photography, the old-fashioned way. People say it's old people's talk.
But don't you believe that by developing the film first, the discipline, when you show somebody who's quite young today, somebody who's starting out, you show them a video. There was one particular video that was about a guy who found some really old wartime undeveloped rolls.
Okay.
And he made a film. It's on Vimeo, and he develops them and turns them into prints. It's like a day. It takes a long time to get to the end game. And I showed that to a few people, and it's like, oh, come on, get to it. And the fact that things take such a lot of time, and there's alchemy, there's chemistry going on. By developing and printing your own work, that had to have given you a much better appreciation of how you should take pictures.
Exactly.
By you doing the end game. Like you, instead of just going clicky, here, can you please turn it into prints?
You did the whole thing yourself. So you made you measured your lights, you put your own film in your camera, you chose what kind of film you used. There was a lot of different sort of films. What kind of tonal things do you like? What combination with developer and film are you going to use? When you came there and you finally thought, this is the way I like it. It could change also after some period, because I see if I now every now and then need an old negative, and I see that, okay, I was doing it that way then. Much more harsh or
but you'll see it as the pictures manifest in itself in front of your face. You're going to go, oh shit, man.
How could I have done that?
I should have done this. You know what I mean? And you're going to get it immediately. It's like when I did my DVDs. I did I never knew I was ever going to make a DVD and sell them. I didn't even know that there was a market for that. And but when I'd never done video really before. I'd done loads of professional work on video, but I wouldn't have called myself a videographer or anything. I'd done quite a lot of editing jobs for people because I just knew the software. So I just went, I can do that. I knew nothing about anything, but you just dive in and do it. And when I made my DVDs, because I would make them with multiple camera angles, with animation in between, because I edited the DVD and I didn't bring somebody in to do it. That massively, really fast-tracked me to learning how to make good video when you edit your own video. Because I'm going, oh, that camera, that camera needs to be just 2 degrees.
Right.
And then that little slither of gap, which I can't crop out. And then when it came to then I learnt about cutting and editing video. It's such a one frame. If there's 30 frames a second on average, 1 frame difference in the cut can make a difference with how it feels. But you only find that out
By doing.
by doing the whole thing.
But isn't that the same with your dentist who never had a thing in his mouth because
He's got perfect teeth.
he got perfect teeth,
Yeah.
and so if he doesn't know how it feels to get this
Oh, right,
injection,
yeah, yeah.
or if he doesn't
Yeah.
know how it is when they're drilling, he shouldn't be drilling another person. Because no, that's
If
what
you've
I
not
mean.
had it done to yourself, if you've not experienced it
Isn't that
yourself,
true?
don't do it to me.
That's,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So by developing your own film and printing your negatives, you learn so much, and you know exactly, you see exactly what you did wrong, what you did do wrong.
Okay, then the big question is, one question I see that Ron's here, and he's
Hey,
made a
Ron.
couple of comments. Hi, Sjaak. Do you think you're using Broncolor, Sjaak? Would you say that there is no better stuff to get? You like Broncolor?
I like it, yeah.
Yeah, you like it?
That's
That's what I know you are from Sjaak. And did the stone eating, the stone etching too, and later did chemigraphy. You're getting old, Sjaak, with sunglasses on an emoji. So the big question is like, so you're of a certain age, right? And you've only ever been a photographer for your whole life,
Yeah.
working life.
Yeah.
So as a percentage of your life, that's quite a lot. That's a big percentage of your life. So your whole life has been just photography.
Pictures, yeah.
So let's just say, I don't know, can you see now? Yeah, there. So that's
Can
your
we get
life.
rid of this?
No, because I'm going to move. Okay, yeah, we'll move it to
Let's
we'll move it to
do-
something else, shall we?
Somebody nice.
Yeah, go on, choose one.
Let me see.
Who's that?
Well, I chose one.
Has he got a knife?
The one. Yeah, that's a very good cook.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
good.
Is this from with that? Oh, that's from Blau.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Blau
Yeah.
in a bit. We'll put Blau up there. So you've been around a long time. So that's your working life. So as a percentage of your time in photography, how much as a percentage have you been using digital equipment? 10%,
When
20%?
did
When did you go? It was like 15, 20 years. No, 15 years.
I was quite
18 years.
quite
You were
quick.
early?
Yeah, I was early to do it,
Okay.
but not completely digital. I bought a very good scanner, and so
So
I,
you still use film, but you scanned it in and then
Yeah.
manipulated
Yeah.
digital. So you only
Yeah.
did half digital that way.
yeah, right.
And a lot of people would have done the same. That
Yeah.
would have been their first.
Because then there were no real good
Yeah, exactly.
backs.
We had to
for-
wait.
Yeah,
Yeah, because Photoshop was already out, because that was a part of
Yeah.
the digital revolution for
Yeah.
printing and
Mhm.
design, and nothing really to do with photography, although it's obviously used because it manipulates pixels. But we had to wait in photography for camera backs to catch up with the technology that was already invented for my world that I came from. But now you've obviously used chemical and film for a long time in your life, maybe 2/3 of it and 1/3 of it.
Yeah.
Maybe that kind of ratio, maybe?
yeah, I think
1/3, yeah.
Yeah.
But ultimately, what do you prefer?
Well, that's
Digital,
difficult
good
to
or
say.
bad?
That's difficult to say.
Yeah.
No, you can't just say this one or that one. I think that digital, actually, if you work for the printing things, it needs to be digital anyway.
Yeah.
It was digital also in the film time. It need to be printed, so it needed to be digital anyway. So that's not important, I think. But the thing that digital now brings us is that I think that photography has too many possibilities, and that's why most people put the camera on P and hope that it will be all right. And young photographers, I know.
Because you teach a lot of young photographers, right?
I do a few, yeah. And I try to tell them, if you really want to learn the profession, you should use a camera with one lens, so no removable lens, just so one lens. Then you start to learn about depth of field and about perspective and all that shit. If you have, like, people use their zoom lens not to change the perspective, they use it to get things closer or to
telescope.
And that's only half of what a lens can do. And all the other things, like, am I using a spot meter or am I using integral? That are so many differences.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so I think that the cameras now have too many possibilities, and the fact that I'm going to say something dangerous. I think that storage card should only be able to storage 36 shots. Then if I'm in the jungle in, I don't know where, in Africa, and I have only 2 cards with me, I have to really look before I push the button.
You have to consider.
That's exactly what I said in the beginning. Looking, seeing, and then pushing the button. And then you get much better pictures, even if you make pictures of football players.
Yeah, but it is understandable, isn't it, though, when somebody hasn't gone through what you went through, where you could only do, 16 or 12 on a roll? Because I've never done that. I'm not a photographer. I play with the images afterwards, fundamentally. I know about photography.
Pictures of somebody else.
But less is usually in life more, isn't it? More choices, in a way, means to me less discipline. I suppose, it is less discipline. I loved the discipline of my job working in litho, because it was the same. It was using chemistry, it was developing film, and although I didn't do it by hand and we had a machine that did it, but I still had to make sure that all the temperatures were correct and the developer was the right strength, and you'd have to test it to make sure you're getting continuity. And it was alchemy. It was organic. It was like baking. And it's a discipline. And if you fuck up at the end of it, that just costs the company money, your time, consumables, and everything. So for us, we had to be really, really creative. But we were under a stopwatch. You've only got one time to come up with a solution for this job, so we can turn this design into what the designer wants or the customer wants. And you've got to come up with a path. And each person would come up with maybe their own workflow, but more or less pieces of films would be used, because somebody would be a little bit more creative and use less consumables and get there in 30% quicker. And it would take a long, and you can't teach why that person came up with that. It's just by, like, what do you call it? What's the word? Begins with V. Vicariously. You just pick it up through osmosis by just being around. Somebody can't tell you, like when you get the lighting or something, you can't teach why you do it, because it comes from here, right? But it's just by sort of being around somebody, eventually you go, okay, I get that. But with the non-immediacy, like everything, when you watch people, like Utrecht is a beautiful city, so for 8 months of the year, it's full of tourists, and they've all got cameras. And I often will just watch people taking pictures, and there is no consideration of what I'm about to do, because it's just machine gun. It's just click, unhappy, turn it, click, turn it, unhappy, click. you know, and you
they
see
end up in P.
Yeah, probably. And there's nothing wrong with that, because that's why you spent a lot of money.
If you go out of your front door,
Yeah.
you have a very nice view of the dome tower.
Of course.
Right. Many people stop in front of the door, get a camera, make a picture, and if I have the time, I look at what they're doing. And then you see that most of the times the tower is dark because it's
Of course,
backlit.
there'll be no detail in the tower at all.
It's backlit.
Yeah.
So the sky is well exposed, but the tower is dark. What did I do? Push the button again. But that's not going to help, stupid. So,
yeah. But so yeah, I mean, I just miss the discipline, and I suppose in a way that's why I do what I do, because there's many times I do things and teach things or develop systems to do things, which seems to be shed loads of work that on, I guess, to maybe the untrained eye, that is just completely unnecessary. But it's always there for a purpose. You know, it's always there for a purpose. The end, to get to the end game with only one cognitive choice, either P or A or whatever, that to me is not a creative environment, because there's no latitude in there for me to impose my will.
From turning that
So,
thing.
like my process action, you press the button and it does 200, it does about 250 steps, micro calculations to get to the end game. Well, that gives me 250 possibilities where I can refine it and I can evolve my taste and look at it and go, yeah, but I don't like that bit. And it means that you're not just undoing one act. I can go back and unravel it and go, yeah, but just that bit there can be different. So it's micro adjustments.
And you're always going to make mistakes. If you see this picture of this cook.
Yeah.
Okay, I now see that I was busy with a reflection on his knife.
Yeah.
And
because there's no reflection in his knife.
No, because
clean.
I think that if I would have
Let me bring it
put
to you.
a little bit more light here,
Yeah, absolutely.
this with a reflection thing, or maybe the light a little bit more this way, turn, it would have been much better.
Or, because you took this when did you take this?
I don't know, a few years ago.
Yeah. Or, if I had moved here a few years ago, I'd have been able to have shown you the digital reflector that I made. And then you would have just used that. Because then, you see, if you had then developed your skills in the post-processing bit, then when you're there as a photographer with that scene in your head, you can go, yeah, I can play around with the light.
Yeah. But
or I can achieve exactly the same or even better by knowing that I can do something in 5 seconds in Photoshop to give me exactly the same thing. But you just got a much more whole picture of the whole process rather than thinking that everything has to be done in camera.
Yeah, but
You know what I mean?
because I'm from old school.
Exactly.
I think that I still prefer, although I learned a lot from you, I still prefer to turn his head a little bit more
of course.
to the light, so that you get this triangle here with light. And that's not only because I don't know really how to do it in Photoshop, but also because it has something to do with the contact with the sitter. You understand what I mean?
Absolutely.
So if I tell him, okay, look at this finger and leave everything the way it is, but only move it a little.
Yeah.
There is some contact between you and the person that's
Well, that's
posing.
also what struck me when I was talking with you, like just so that you guys know, I mean, this is obviously a relatively new thing for me. I mean, it's not been a new thing in my head. I've been wanting to do this for about 8 years or maybe even longer, to do this kind of interview thing, podcast thing. But in most cases, there's going to be somebody sitting over there controlling cameras and things like that. But you were really, really, really firm in the fact that you said, I don't want anybody else in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want anybody else in the room, because that's how you work with your victims. With your victims, nobody can watch you do what you do.
No, nobody is
Because that's a distraction, isn't it, in the room?
if there is a third person now in what we're doing now.
Yeah.
If there are millions of people looking at this.
Hardly.
So, but they
Two
are
and a
not. They are not part of our. How do you say that? Of our.
Connection?
Yeah, it's more. It's more. There's more than connection. If okay.
Oh, energy.
Yeah. If you go to you're in the park and you're walking your dog, and you meet a friend and you start to talk and you have a talk about something important for both of you, and there's a third person standing by you. He doesn't say a word. He's just standing there.
Yeah.
The whole conversation is going to be different.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
So if I have a picture, if I have a photo shoot with somebody in the studio, and he's the director of company so and so, and he brings his wife. Yeah, because we are in Utrecht now, so later we're going to climb the Dome Tower and all that shit. I said, can you please go away and drink coffee somewhere else, and we call you when we're ready? Why? I can shut my mouth. I said, no, you are influencing your husband while he's sitting there. And that's not because I want to be difficult. That's because I know that it's true. So
no, it is absolutely. Yeah, I mean there'll be different types of these that I do where extra people in the room will actually be helpful. But I knew with you definitely we can't have anybody else in the room.
No, not really.
Yeah.
And like when I was much younger, I was working for a magazine, for a fashion magazine, and that was a magazine that teach you to make your own stuff, your own clothes. So, and they found that I was the children's photographer. So I had a lot of sessions with children. The terrible thing with children is that mostly they have parents, and the parents they brought their children for the picture. And if the parents, for instance, drilled their children the way that the parents could leave and go shopping or having coffee or something, the session was much easier. It was much more fun for the children, much more fun for me, and the result was much better. Because the children were sort of behaving or against the parents or to please them.
Absolutely,
you know?
Yeah. Well, look, it's I wouldn't say it's common that that's the case, that view, but I have, because I've worked with a lot of photographers and photography companies that regard, all sorts of different types, but portrait photographers quite a lot. And one of the best that I've ever witnessed, ever been a part of and seen and became a part of what they did for a while, was a company, Photogenic, in Dublin. And when I used to look at the pictures of the children that they would take, and then I would go and teach people how to work on them in post-production and stuff and help create workflow and things. I'd look at the pictures and they were markedly different to other pictures I'd seen. And now, because I've seen people who can engage and get the victim to open and be themselves, that is an infinitely greater skill than it is knowing what buttons to push in a camera. Because what's the point in knowing how to set up lights and knowing how to set up the camera if you can't get the person to be themselves? And I used to look at the pictures from the woman photographer there, and yeah, sure, the lighting and everything, it was all very formulaic. It was they had a brand of identity of their shot, but that isn't what I saw. It was the expression in the children's faces, or the victim, I would say, their models' faces, that and she would never let me in the studio. Her husband would let me in. He had no problem. He had no problem with taking pictures with me, but she would never let me in the room while she was taking pictures. It was a completely private thing. So God knows how she behaved to work in that way to get these kids to be that focused and, in a sense, relaxed and open. Because you really got a sense of who they were. And if you just think about the psychology of that, how do you do that with a kid that's a stranger to you? They just walk in. You've got half an hour to maybe get them in that zone. I know what I would do, but in the great scheme of things, I haven't got a clue. I know what I would try to do, but I'm sure I'd get that wrong.
When I have to do things like that, or I prefer not to think too much about the session we're going to do in advance. I use my intuition. Somebody comes in and you sort of feel this is going to be all right, and you can have that with children. You can have that with old people. You can have it with everyone. And as long as I'm not an expert on that, but most of the times it helps me to show people that I'm really interested. If I ask you a question and I'm not interested in your answer, I shouldn't ask the question. So if I am not interested in the picture of the person and I'm only interested in money, for instance, I shouldn't make this picture. Because this person, I don't know how, but feels that I'm not honest.
I think so, absolutely, especially with something as intimate as having your picture taken, because that terrifies most people. You watch how they behave when they go into the studio, and I bet you watch it. Because we always do the same thing with you, because you always make it, whenever we do anything together, we always have 15 minutes, maybe half an hour having a drink together, and it's just like, so what do you do last week? Blah, 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 blah. Oh, shall we get on now? It's all, there's, you know what I mean? And that is obviously clearly what you use to create some kind of a bond with your victims, with your models.
But I'm also honestly interested in that person.
Absolutely. If it's just like please, smile, cheese, do something stupid, take a picture. Yeah.
The same stupid question is, how was your weekend? On the hairdresser asked you on Wednesday how your weekend was.
Yeah.
Fuck you, you know.
Yeah, you're not really asking because you really want to hear the answer.
And right? if somebody, a cashier in a supermarket, says with a face like anger, "Have a nice day," why should you say that if you don't mean it?
Yeah.
Because the boss told her. And while you see that the person thinks, well, I hope you die, or something. Yeah.
I hope you die. Yeah, hope not. So you, let me just find a different picture now, because Blau's a good restaurant. That's a, what is it? That's
I was there yesterday.
No, what is it? What's the food again they cook?
Indonesian.
Indonesian, yeah, it's very nice. All these are yours. No, I've got to show you this actually, because I didn't send you this because I knew you were away. In Nicaragua, you went recently? But I was walking through a part of town which I've never been at recently, and I went past a hairdresser's. Now, did I get a picture or did I not get a picture?
My hairdresser, you mean?
There's a hairdresser. There you go. Tell me that's not yours. I walked past this hairdresser's and then there was just these massive, great big black and white prints. No, sorry, you can't see these, but anyway. But I thought, I recognise that. I recognise that studio. I recognise that style. I recognise that format. And was that is that where you get your haircut? Mm-hmm. So you're the master at bartering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
And I love that.
Yeah, me too.
I
love it.
You know, and I don't think I've ever met anybody who barters their way through life
And I'm not bartering through life, but it's,
what I mean
like
is, no, you don't barter to own your house. But what I mean is, how many days in your life go by when you don't have an opportunity? When an opportunity to barter comes along, I bet you take it.
You think there's one thing with bartering, and that's the fact that I'm very curious. I always want to know things. If there is this, how do you say that, this shovel on the road somewhere doing, I'd love to be on that thing just to see how is it to work
works,
on that thing, you know. So I go there and ask this driver, can I please do this for a while?
Can I have a go of your JCB?
Yeah, and most of them say, do you know how to do that? No, but you can teach me that. And then, you know, I've been on that thing, and that's nice. And that's also with bartering. If you are having a bartering deal with a company in something that you don't know a thing of, it gives you a sort of insight in that world. And I like that very much. I told you about the yoga thing. I'm going 4 times a week to the yoga, and I make pictures of all the yoga teachers of that school, and there are quite a lot.
So you get your classes for free?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that because I get all these people in my studio, apart from on the yoga mat,
that opens up a lot of possibilities too.
I see a lot of things that normal yogi, the way we call it, will never know. Then you get an insight in that world that's different than the outside looks like.
The way I
that's
see
funny.
it, I mean, I wouldn't say I know you really, really well, but you know, I'm getting to know you now. And how many bartering things do you have going at any one time? You know, because there's like most restaurants you don't pay.
How do you?
You don't pay for your yoga. But the thing is,
it differs.
You only have to go back how many years? How many years, honestly, as humans, do we have to go back before 80% of our endeavour each day would be exactly the same? It would be the foundation of life, and our connection to each other would be so deep.
But it's the same thing with me having the need of a screw on this wall because of this painting or picture that needs to be hanged there. If I can, I always dare to ask people, can you do this for me? But I'm also very willing to do something for somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and that's also bartering, actually.
I don't know what it's like because I've never lived in that time, but I can now imagine that time. I would just love that there was a little bit more of that instead of everything we have to do on a kind of a business level has got to return money. You know what I mean? Because we're under so much pressure to do that.
I make a lot of pictures for free. Yeah. And no bartering at all. But just because somebody doesn't have the money to pay me, they say, I say, okay, come on. Yeah. And then most of the times they give you a book that you already have, or a record that or a CD that you already have. But that's not where I do it for. Yeah, that so, you know. Yeah. So, but to do something for free for someone is it's just nice.
So did you ever have the bartering thing with Madeleine?
No.
See, Madeleine is still the thing I'm probably most thankful for. I really like my apartment, so thank you for my apartment. But you taking me to Madeleine that time, you only go to yoga because there's nice girls there. Do you think that's true?
No.
Because you are literally in a world on your own. I've been with you once, and it's like, this is my space. And
no, that's what the teachers tell you.
Right.
Your mat is your space.
Yeah.
And that's a pity if you are, how do you say that in English? If you are a visual person, that you really look, I see things. I really have now a problem. I'm trying to look at you but I know there's a screen saying something. Um, but I have to act like I'm not seeing it at all. And that's on the yoga mat also.
Oh, of course.
So
yeah.
you're on the yoga mat,
Yeah.
and when I started 4 years ago, I was the oldest and the stiffest in class.
Yeah.
And
As you
now,
would be. No, you're not.
now I'm not. And now I like, there is one posture, I don't know if you remember that, that's the downward facing dog. You're standing on your hands and like this.
Yeah.
And then you look through your legs to the backside. And then, okay, I know my attention should be on the mat, but
How do you not look
I
around?
see all this,
Of course.
and then I think, oh, this person is half my age, but he's not doing it the way it should. I'm much better. So, you know,
Right. Cool.
but you shouldn't do it if you're really into this religion's kind of Zen. Then you're not interested in what
That's the side of it that I struggle with a little bit. But I'm very much looking forward to starting my yoga career, but it won't be for another couple of weeks yet. My little path, which I can't wait.
It brought me a lot, really. So I'm very glad that that one of my a friend of mine, also a colleague, Saar, she was constantly asking me, when do you come with me to yoga? I said, come on now. I'm not kind of a windmill like that. And again, and again, and again. And then suddenly she came on my birthday 4 years ago, and then I thought, okay, this week I go with you, then I'm ready with all this asking. So we went, and the same week I went again, so for the second time that week. And now I go 4 times a week, and it brought me more strength, more, how do you say that you can walk longer or ride your bike longer.
But it is huge here in popularity. I mean, it's everywhere.
Yeah, and there is one new school every week, I think.
Kids yoga, dogs yoga.
Oh, man.
I mean, it is everywhere. I've never been anywhere in the world where I've walked past so many.
I think it's even worse in Amsterdam.
Everywhere. Yeah, I mean, it is literally everywhere, and it is stunning. I was. Because you did it with me, right? So you imposed that kind of come with me, 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 come with me. This week,
no,
this week,
I was
next
not
week,
pushing like that.
Oh no, you
I
really
did
were.
It very subtle.
No. There's nothing subtle about you, I don't think. And then, you know, I had my reasons for not wanting to, and then when I did, it was just, it really was much. I knew what to expect, but I didn't expect quite what I experienced.
No.
And that was only in one, and that was only just a really basic one. And obviously the first one, you're kind of self-conscious a bit, and obviously, you know, you're all moving to the left and doing this, and I'm right, and then I'm looking around going, oh yeah,
that's
I'm
because
facing
you
the wrong
drive
way.
on the wrong side of the road
And
also.
yeah, well, of course. But no, it is stunning. It really is stunning, and I'm really looking forward to making it a part of my week. But I just can't do it right now.
I do it. We, Maria and me, we now picked up our old habit of doing a few yoga poses after waking up in the bedroom.
That's what I want to get to, the point where I can do it at home.
That's something very easy. So we have our own mat in the bedroom, and we do a few sun salutations and a few other things, and that's such a different way of waking up. That because then your body is already, you know, if you do your first sun salutation, I hear noises everywhere in my bones and things, but then after the third one, I don't hear it anymore. And that's very nice, really.
Yeah. I think probably I get something very similar when I do my getting up at 5 o'clock or 5:30 and I go running, which, you know, 5 years ago, if you would, only 5 years ago, or maybe even only 2 years ago, if you would have said to me with a crystal ball, this is going to be you, getting up at 5 every morning and going running, and then it was only in the beginning for like 20 minutes, and now I can run for an hour and a half. And I do it quite happily, and running bores me stupid, and I a real attention deficit syndrome. I just find it the most boring thing ever. I used to find it really boring. But running in the morning, oh my God, the only time I could ever run, and I've been running for a long time now, about 10, 12 years, but I could only ever run late at night. I would go at the end of the day, always. I hated waking up like that in the morning.
Made it change?
I don't know. I honestly cannot remember what it was that made me try it. And then I hated every minute of the first morning I went running. And then it was when I came here, I think. Then I found running around the canals, that loop. And then I found that it's a 5K exactly from door to door, all the way around the inner canal. And then, yeah, okay, we can do it once, now we'll do it twice. And if I don't go now, I feel like my body's having a tantrum if I don't do it in the morning, because my day, especially my mental attitude to my day, is so completely different if I don't do the exercise in the morning.
I had it, we traveled quite a lot last month, 1.5 months, I don't know. So then yoga was not there every day or, you know, and then you start to miss it. Also physically, it breaks down very quickly.
Absolutely. I mean, I haven't been running because I had this really bad cold, really horrible cold that lasted for about 5-6 weeks, and I've never had a cold that's lasted that long. And I tried to run towards the end of me thinking that I'm cured, and just could hardly breathe, and then your nose is blocked and everything. So, okay, yeah, I'll wait a bit longer, and then you're aching a bit more than you used to. So I've had to wait another week, and I'm desperate now to get back.
Yeah.
Because it's not the act of running that I like, it's the feeling in the day after I've run. And if I start my day like that, I get so much more work done.
Yeah.
So much more work. I'm more focused. I'm much more focused than the chaos that usually, like today was just chaos. There's always more things demanding my time than I can achieve. And if I make sure I have a good hour's run now in the morning, I'm infinitely better at being able to choose one of them and stay non-distracted. I don't know why that is. It just works for me. And so to me, it's just like, it's the medicine for having a better day. And it makes you feel good too. And obviously, you know, everything about it is good. But yeah, so, and I'm sure that when I start adding yoga into it, punctuating my runs with yoga as well, it can only ever get better. So I really look forward to that. I just can't do it at the moment.
But you have an appointment with yourself when you're going to do it?
I'd say within a month.
Okay.
Because the thing is, I just have to plan my diary. Because when I decide to start this, I know I have to build a habit. See, if I just go once like I did with you, and then I couldn't continue because I was so enthused after I went with you. I just, but I was going away. Yeah. So that enthusiasm was then like put on hold, and then what? And then I come back from that trip, and then I'm meant to just feel exactly the same, and then it gets lost in the ether. Yeah. So when I start, I want to do 1 month where I do it 4 times a week.
All right.
Because I want to very quickly get to the point where even if I'm doing it badly, I want to be able to do it as a part of my getting up and stretching before I go for running. So I've got a real definite plan where I want it to be, but I need to have it so that I know I'm going to be here without interruption for 4 weeks, so I can do 4 times, really, really disciplined, and make sure I do it instead of...
Well, it's funny because I do it completely different. I don't make a plan. I look at the beginning of the week, I look at my agenda, and I see there are a few things that are important for me. What kind of yoga am I going to do? Yeah. There are many forms. And who is the teacher? There are teachers that I don't want to, I don't like, and there are teachers that I like very much. So I'm choosing that. And if I don't have time because there are jobs to be done, or we're traveling or something, then okay. So every beginning of the week I look in my agenda and try to plan to do it. Last week I took for the first time, 2 classes on one day. And I thought, I'm curious about how is that going to be. It was very nice. 1 in the morning and 1 in the evening. Well, something that if you asked me 4 years ago, do you think that you ever will go to the yoga for 2 times a day? Now, come on now. Are you crazy or something? No, but I did. And it's not, I'm not proud of it or something, but it's,
No, but look,
funny
I can
experience.
absolutely appreciate the addictive quality of it.
Yeah.
You know, and so I really look forward to that.
Okay,
Cool.
You're more than welcome.
I'll come with you one more time and decide which
and
one
then
I
you
go
go
to.
on your own.
We
way.
see on the way now, because I've moved studio to this building. I now walk through a different part of the city, and it's amazing how, even though I'm my age, I still am 5 and I have tantrums, emotional tantrums. You just don't show them on the outside. And when I knew I was going to have to move here to get the internet that we needed to do this, I wasn't able to do this up until recently. I had to move to this building to even be able to do this, and I was thinking, but I don't want to walk in that part of the city. I like where I walk. It's really nice, and I've got my routine, and I've got the cafe I go to, and now that I've been coming here for the last few months, I love it. And there's loads of yoga studios on the way here.
Oh yeah.
Loads. And I walk now, like I remember I came here with you one day and you said, you've got so many different ways of getting here. And that's not my thinking. My thing is functional. How do I get from where I want to go to where I'm, from where I am as quick, so I don't have to make choices. So like for me, clothing is very...
But that's such a terrible thing, actually, because I was, even, when was it? Was it yesterday? Last Sunday, I went to a concert in Amsterdam, and a concert hall I'd never been to, close to the central station, and I've been, let's say, around the world and around my country, and I saw buildings in a special architectural style that I like most. That's the Amsterdam School. My God, I've never seen them, and they're so beautiful. And how often have I been 100 meters away from it?
Yeah.
Never seen.
But it's just a side street or a different angle or turning left just at the next block or the previous block or something.
What did you...
Yeah. So now I walk in different ways now. I've
That's
got like
good.
4 or 5 different ways. And each time I go a different way, I just now think, what's down there? So then there's these interlocking roads. So I just walk down these tiny, tiny little corridors and then halfway down, yoga school. Yeah. And ridiculously cheap. I mean, ridiculously cheap.
Brought you past the hairdresser salon? I mean, that's not this way.
I can't even remember. I can't remember where I was and why I was there. Where was I and why was I there? I have no idea.
Okay.
I have no idea. Okay. I honestly can't remember now. Okay. But I was just walking around and I just went. I was with somebody. I must have been with. I was with Kel probably. And I just went, hold on a minute. I know these pictures. I know who took these, and then I knew you was away, and I was going to send you this. I did send you the picture. No. I didn't. I was going to, but you never respond. You very rarely respond to me ever. So
I want to keep it a little bit.
An avalanche of response. Yeah. So there was this thing I wanted to talk about because there's been a change. Remember that thing that I showed you a while ago? And you've talked a lot about you then spreading the word, okay? Remember that thing I showed you about Adobe Camera Raw?
Oh yeah, man.
Okay, so everybody knows what Adobe Camera Raw is, right? So, and I showed you. But
do you also spread that news, that word? About the Raw?
Yeah, I feel like when I'm the only person that actually. I feel like I'm the the story of the Emperor's New Clothes.
Yeah.
and where everybody goes, oh yeah, isn't it amazing, it's beautiful, look at the line, look at the colour, and then it takes a 5-year-old child to just go, yeah, but the dude's naked, you know what I mean? I feel like I'm that person. I'm the only person that sees that he's not wearing anything, because everybody else is either politically or emotionally motivated to just go along with the crowd. And when everybody else says Lightroom, or Adobe Camera Raw, or Adobe, or whatever, but yeah, it's great, isn't it? And it's like not through real discerning choice. It's just to fit in with the mass. And I feel like
also hearsay. I mean,
no, of course, yeah.
What does the normal photographer like me know about?
Nothing.
No, that's true.
Well, I don't mean you don't know anything, because you know what images are, but the thing is you don't know that. See, that's why I asked you about you developing your own work, because I'd say you're in the extreme minority there. I know there's many people who do, but as a percentage to the millions of photographers around the world that have only ever used a photographic lab to produce the end game. People like you. And you only, that's why you said you only used to make your own prints within a tiny band of the product that you would sell. If it was outside of that, then you would use a lab. Yeah. So photographers historically have never been, they've been image capturers, but they've never been image creators. Yeah. Somebody else did that for them. And then they went, look at my image. And now I can't remember why we got onto that topic. Oh yeah, you said hearsay and everything, and yeah, and so frame of reference is, how do you know what you're looking at? You know, unless you've seen really good, how do you know what good is? Good is an ever moving concept.
When do you know when you're in the kitchen and cooking for a friend or something, and you taste?
Yeah.
When do you know it's good? Just because you...
No, but frame of reference means keep trying a broader range of things and make up your own mind what you think is good. Yeah. Okay. So the other point I didn't finish on was Madeleine. My only point of talking about that was it's my favourite restaurant in Utrecht. It's not the only good one, because there's loads of good food here, but if anybody ever comes to Utrecht who doesn't live here and wants to know where to eat, oh, Jules is here. I'm going to have to read that in a minute.
Who's Jules?
Because Jules is now in America. But Jules, you need to come on here. So whenever you find yourself back in the UK, you get on a flight over here and you come and do this with me, and that will be a conversation and a half. That will be so cool. I'll talk about it maybe him if we've got time. But Madeleine is just my favourite restaurant by far, and I thank you for taking me there for lunch that time. And so I just needed to say that. So you need to go to Madeleine. If you ever come to Utrecht, you have to go to Madeleine. But to get back to Adobe Camera Raw, it's changed. There's a brand new version of Adobe Camera Raw. Now remember I showed you that thing about it that's pretty shit, right?
Yeah, but shouldn't you explain that to your...
Yeah, no, but most of them will know. Well, no, some of them won't. But taking things on face value and maybe assigning reverence to big company corporate logos on software, and just believing on face value that of course it must be good because it comes from Adobe, or it comes from Phase, or it comes from Nikon or something. You know, the minute I saw this happen in Adobe Camera Raw, I went, what the fuck? Who thought that was a good idea? And then I showed you, and that was like 6 years later. And I show people today, and then you show people, don't you? Yeah. And how many people have you shown this thing in Adobe Camera Raw, and they knew about it? Not one, right? No. And you must have showed a lot of people. Yeah. No one knows. Students don't know. No. Older photographers, more wiser, more experienced people don't know. But anyway, there's. Let me see if I can get into it here. So. I just want to show you, I put a raw file on here. This is a file that I'm using at the moment to do some testing. And Adobe have brought out a new dimension to their profiling. Okay, they call it profiling. And so now you've got this thing called Adobe Color, where it used to be on standard. Okay, so this is something new that's happened in the last couple of days, I think. And so basically, if you look if we zoom this up, don't know what you. I'm just going to make it so you can see some stuff here. Let me just do some zooming here. I'm going to zoom up. This is one of the members of the website's image. Okay, so there you can see. I mean, obviously, the camera's pointing at a screen here, so there's a massive extra contrast. I still haven't got it all balanced correctly yet, but you'll see the idea. But if I go to Adobe Color is now the default. And so now you've got this thing where you can go color and treatment, color black and white, and then you can choose before, like we had landscape and portrait, and you get different. So we go from color to portrait. It's interesting that the amount of clipping has changed.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And then you go back to standard. So I'm hoping that standard is actually the same as the standard as what was in the previous version. At least people who like that would have continuity. So if you go from Adobe Standard to Adobe Color,
clipping,
all it is just different. Nowhere can I find literature that tells me what they changed. So all you're looking at it is like a 5-year-old child going, yeah, I like that one. That one's better. It's more colourful and it's more contrasty. But still, they haven't fixed the thing. They haven't fixed the thing that made you go,
no?
No, it still stays the same. So when you look at standard here, and you look at the amount of clipping in this area here, you'll see that this software is giving me a representation of clipping being like this. And for how many years have you used Adobe Camera Raw?
Since
From the beginning of time,
yeah.
digital, right?
Yeah.
And then 2011 or 2012, so that's 6 years ago, you've been using it. And it's been doing this particular thing and you had no idea, right? Because you take it on face value, you look at the image and go, oh, I nearly got my exposure right, because you think there's only a little bit of clipping. Yeah. So you go, oh, fuck, I nearly got it right. Yeah. Hey, I can bring that back.
But then you put it in the other version, the earlier version.
Yeah. So this is actually just a really good example of how bad it is, because I don't know what I can see what you can see here. Very little definition in this dress here. I mean, like no definition. There's no clipping. But there's also no definition either, which doesn't make any sense, because you can see all these undulations of fabric here, and even in here, look, there is a flatness, there is a tone there devoid of shape, and the reason why that is because the true representation of the file that came from the camera is all the way back. Let me just show you, I'll zoom it up so you can see. It's all the way back to this. To get a true representation preview of what your camera took, the truest. I mean, it's not 100% because it's still deviated by the profile, but the true amount of clipping on this image is this.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's just a fucking joke. It's a joke that this company did that. It's not the joke that they did it. The joke for me is they did it and an industry had no idea it happened.
And they don't tell you anything about it.
They're not going to tell you, are they?
But why do they still have it there?
But the problem is if you put it in version 2, you still got that. So okay, so you can still use Adobe Color. Because I only looked at this today. Oh no, you can't. As soon as you go back to Adobe Color, it goes back to version 4. So to use Adobe Camera Raw in its best form, you have to backdate it to 6 years ago. Yeah. And
for every picture again.
Oh no, yeah, but you can make a default. So you can make a start point which goes back. But because then if as long as you keep away from this thing called recovery, or come away from using whites and highlights and use the word exposure, then you get a sense of the true detail that's in the file. See, that detail there was in the file.
It is there,
But if you take this piece of software on face value and do what 99.999999999% of every single user, whether they be enthusiast or professional, and they just put it in, they open it up in Lightroom, because this is the same as Lightroom. If you just take it on face value that your image is being treated with integrity by the software manufacturer, you couldn't be any more wrong. It's just being totally bastardized by the software. Look, there's loads of tones and details in here, which I can still have, but you don't even get to see that they even exist if you use the latest version. So if we just put it back to... Look, that's got no clipping, but it's got no tones and details either. So you could say probably...
What will be their agenda?
Well, it's dumbing down. It's the de-skilling. It's the democratization. I mean, when you look at the business model for people who make software and hardware, they don't care about really the quality that comes from it. They want the largest, their money and share price or profitability comes from the vast numbers of people they can get to use their software. And today, where is their discipline? The discipline of knowing that this endeavor is going to take me 2 days to achieve. Or, you know, this is why I'm saying that I grew up and you grew up, and, you know, you're a little bit older than me, but, you know, I never developed a roll of 35mm film. I wish I did. I now want to. I want to know what it's like.
How to put it in the...
Yep, I want to do it. Not because I care about the image. I want to know what it feels like to have to wait. How long would it be before you saw the image in front of your face? Because obviously you're going to get a negative representation, right?
Okay, that's what...
But that's a negative, so you won't know from that negative. You know a couple of bullet points of what to look at, whether that's going to make a good picture. But how long before when you take the film out the back of the camera till you get a print in the hand? How long? It's a day, isn't it? Half a day?
Half a day.
Half a day. That's a half a day.
Your film needs to be...
And today it's... it's how long it takes.
That's also very important, because I had to get used, and I don't know if I'm used to it now, but in the old days, I took a picture, a portrait of somebody on location or in the studio, and first I made a Polaroid picture, on my on the back, instead of the back of film on my Hasselblad or other cameras, and the Polaroid was there only for me to see if everything was working.
Yeah, of course.
And to show something to the person that was sitting there.
It's like
proof. We're going that way. So, and then you shot your film, and maybe you shot another film, so you had 24 exposures. And then it was your secret. You went to the lab, you had it developed, then you put it, a day later, you put it on this light bank, how do you call it?
Light table.
Light table, and you picked out the pictures. But if you have to wait a day before you can cut your pictures and choose them, you choose another one, then when you see it right away. Like now, I shoot with the cable to my computer, you know. So at the end of a session, the sitter wants to see it all, and they are going to influence me in the choice we are making.
Yeah, and it shouldn't
so it's
be.
more
It shouldn't be.
Yeah, more democracy.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be like that, because even if I wait for some reasons, I had to wait a week before I look at the pictures again. I'm sure that I make another choice than when I do it right away where the person is there. And that's the same with film. Then you had no choice. It was, you made the picture, and a day later you made a choice.
Yeah.
You picked what you wanted to do. And I think that is also a sort of an advertisement for slow photography. Like now it's click, click, click. Do we like this one? No. We take this one. But it doesn't get the time to really... It's the same thing as going with a boat to the United States. It takes you, I don't know, a week or something. And you travel there and your spirit travels with you. But if you go by plane, how long does it take before you're really there?
Yeah.
A few
Before
days.
you catch up, yeah.
Yeah, and then your job is done, and you go back, and then you're back home, but your mind is still there.
Yeah, but the thing is, slowing down though is a discipline, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of people today, I think, and I would say me too, and that's why the running helps for me. It really it calms my mind down.
Yeah.
The running, and it means that I can be infinitely more productive because I don't scatter. Prioritize. I don't just pick something up and do like 10% of that, and then pick something up and do 10% of that one, and then I'm much more able to pick up something, a task, and then see it all the way through.
Do what you do for 100%.
Yeah, and be much more focused, and that I think comes from the fact that I got my discipline of working, or the mindset or the mantra of working from a time where it was a discipline. So when the job came in, remember like when I came and did that job with you, and I've come in and done a couple of jobs with you, and you go, well, come on then, there's a job, I've shown you the job, get on with it. And I sit there, don't I?
Yeah, oh yeah, with this pencil.
And I'm sitting there with my Wacom pen. Well, it's amazing I haven't got my Wacom pen. And I sit there with my Wacom pen, and I'll just sit in front of the screen for like 10, 15 minutes, and I'm doing this, and I'm playing, and I'm not writing anything down, and you're going, come on, what, you're going to make a mask around that, and I'm going,
But then you explained me what you were doing in your mind.
Exactly, I'm just thinking it through. And that comes from when I was 16, and you know, full of energy and no thought about anything, and all I'm wanting to do is impress so I can keep my job, and I'm doing stuff in the dark room, and I'm doing contacts, and I'm making the same kind of stuff you used to make, but for litho. And the amount of times my boss would see me running around like an idiot, and he'd say, when you're in this state and you're making choices, 80% of them are going to be wrong. It may not mean you do the job wrong, but you'll do the job really inefficiently. Yeah. It will take 4 times longer, and you'll use 16 pieces of film when you only need to use 12. So all you're doing is costing me money. Stop the fuck running around. Go and make a cup of tea. Go and sit in the corner. Take the, you know, we'd have the artwork with the overlay, and then the colours, and then the transparencies on top. And he'd say, 10 minutes, just go and have 10 minutes over there. Take a pencil, a piece of paper, and then just write down what you think
you're going to do.
You're going to do. And then that guy over there, who was called Tom, he was the real experienced guy. I was 16 at this time. He was probably late 30s, early 40s. And he said, then what I want you to do is I want you to just show him that piece of paper, and then he'll be able to walk through without having to do it. And he'll be able to tell you, well, maybe you don't need to do that, or maybe what you should do is do 2 more steps here, because it will mean it will be more flexible. So not rushing to make a mistake. I learned at the age of 16 that, you know, because if I kept making the same mistake all the time, I would have been fired, not because they didn't like me, it's because it's not economically viable to keep me. And so I love the discipline of stuff, and doing more to create more avenues to be creative, rather than just get to the end game as quickly as you possibly can.
That's why I, for instance, I don't take a job if I don't get at least an hour to make a portrait of someone.
Oh yeah, you were telling me there's a time limit on you.
No. So
if I call you and I say, look, I've got 15 minutes, could you get a portrait? You'll go, no, go away, go somewhere else.
Yeah, that's true, because
I don't blame you.
Because it doesn't work. The portrait is not going. If okay, you.
And whether it works for me or not is immaterial to you. It doesn't work for you.
It doesn't work, but it doesn't work for me because I know it doesn't work for the other. Yeah. Okay, somebody comes in, you shake hands. How was your weekend? And you come in and you say, okay, you sit there, I put on the light, I put on the camera, and now you have to smile. Yeah. Of course that's going to be a very bad picture. So if you, most of the times, if I have a session of an hour, you know that, I drink coffee with these people
40 minutes is going to be
40 minutes at least, and then in 20 minutes we make a picture. And that's not that these 40 minutes are not necessary. as necessary as the time as the other 20 minutes.
Mm. Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
part of the whole.
No, exactly,
thing.
and that's what I like about it. That's what I like. That's why I think it just works, because that philosophy is, I will quite often, if I've got a job to do, I can take an hour before I start, because I know in that hour I can probably halve the time that it will take me to do the job if I spend X amount of time beforehand. I don't know how long it will be. Sometimes it's only 30 seconds and you find a better way. But just walking through it first and not rushing to just get on and get it done. And when you transpose that into this, how many people today would look at that image? It's come straight from their camera, right? So it's gone. They took the shot. They remember the shot. They go click. And then they put it into their system, and then they open it up into Lightroom or Adobe Camera Raw, and they look at that, and then they make instant assessments of that. Oh, look, yeah, the exposure's not too bad on that one, and that's really cool. And the only thing I have to do is try and bring some detail back in the bouquet of the roses that she's holding. Completely unaware that basically McDonald's has taken their high quality image and turned it into processed imaging. Because it's already been processed.
Yeah.
It's already been processed, but nowhere on the screen does it say, hey guys, we've just fucked your image for you. And all that highlight detail. But the really important part is the skin tones. That's the lack of shape in the skin tones. It's flat. There's no curvature to the arm.
But what you think that's because it's developed by?
Yeah, it's already been altered by Adobe, but nowhere on the screen does it tell you it's been altered.
Okay.
And for 6 years now, and it's still the same. I can't believe that in this latest version, and this whole thing about Adobe Color, seriously, really? Does that make it better? Really? Please give me the ability to make the start point that I want. Don't just give me another preset that is a start point that you decided for me, because I don't know. You're a software developer. What do you know about color and what an image should look like? Clearly not very much, because standard's not very good.
No, it's a terrible thing.
None of them are.
shocked.
For me, it's the worst application to use as your start point. Of course, I'm happy to use it because I can fix it. But my view would be I shouldn't have to.
I'm sure that
after all this time, I shouldn't have to fix something after all this time. So,
I know that there are not. I don't know any photographer that knows much about Photoshop. We only know.
Especially
only
1%,
this top layer.
Yeah.
That's what we.
Well,
and since you are teaching me every now and then. I'm sometimes I get a headache because because there is so much that you can change.
Yeah, but there's different ways of doing it. You can wang some wang bars on the screen, which are like McDonald's hamburgers. Yeah, okay, it's food and it will nourish you and it will give you energy. But is it good food? No. Go to Madeline; they do really good food. And so retouching would be the same, and it would be the same with photography. You know, there's kind of, let's get it done really quickly, make a little bit of money, put it on program, and you'll get an image and you'll be able to survive, but you won't ever strive for greatness. And the thing with Photoshop, the way I guess I use it, because I use it from a litho background, so I use it in separated mode. So everything I learnt from a litho studio, which was separated, never composite. Photography, from the moment it was conceived, is composite. The red, green and blue channels are always together in the form of a transparency or in the form of a color image. So it's understandable why the world of photography struggles with channels. I mean, there's a few disciplines now where people have used channels and they call it luminosity masks and all this bullshit. But it's only that's the tip of the iceberg of what channels actually are. The image is actually a red, green and blue channel, but by being a photographer, you'd never know that because you only ever see it as a color image or a negative turned into a print. And even the print is not in 3 different colors, it's only one. And so coming from my background, I only ever worked in separated mode. I never saw composite. Composite was what happened off the printing press with the plates that I made, and I never saw it. You might see a proof, You may see a proof. Most of the time we saw a proof.
Yeah.
But so if you apply the theory that I learned from the litho days to Photoshop, well then you're making Photoshop do something way different to what it was designed to do. Most people who use Photoshop or Lightroom or any other program is they only use the tools that are inside. The one thing that's nice about Photoshop is that it's not full of pre-canned solutions. It's becoming full of pre-canned solutions in the last 10 years because they're pandering to a market that wants pre-canned solutions. I don't want to think about how to smooth someone's skin. I just want to press the button and make it happen.
Yeah.
I don't want to have an opinion as to whether I like it or not. Just give me 4 presets and I'll choose the one I want. Thanks very much. Well, obviously, I hate that. And so Photoshop's the only application that allows me to go back 30 years, take my experience and apply it so I make my own treated skin the way I want it to be, not derive an opinion based on what the options the software provides.
That makes this kind of pictures, for instance, it's not the best paid job that you can have. So he has to...
It used to be a good one, but it ain't anymore.
Used to be. But they are pushed to do it faster, faster.
Because of the volume.
And therefore, they don't take or have the time to do it the way it should be done.
Well,
that's why they use the presets.
Well, of course. And who's got the time to sit there and do the job again? I mean, it's one of the things I used to do all the time. Is I'd get my job done, I'd do my work, and then once the client is happy, many times when I knew in here, my instinct tells me I could have done that better. I would go back at the weekend. I'd do it again, and I would try 2 or 3 different ways to see if I could then make it higher in quality, but in less time or in less consumables, so I could be more efficient.
And you learned
but not sacrificing quality.
You learned from the earlier version.
Yeah, because you've already done it once.
Yeah.
But instead of just going, oh well, at least I got away with it because the client never complained. Okay, hey ho, let's get on with the next job. Well, it was no, let's now do it again. And I even used to do that with an advertising agency when I used to teach them all the digital retouching. They had Quantel paint boxes. I won't mention who it is, but they used to have, I think it was 4 Quantel paint boxes. They were like £500,000 or £750,000 each. This was quite some time ago now. It was about 12 years ago, maybe 14 years ago. And I used to go there once a month, and on average about once a month, and I'd go in and teach. And I remember I was teaching the pre-press people, not the people on the Quantel paint boxes, because they were like the gods. They were the retouching people. And these guys would scan in at really, really high resolution and then do the ads. The ads you would see in Vogue and stuff like that. And then they would put these comps together, do all the work, and then they would go back out to transparency. And then these transparencies would go around the world. And then this was before we could obviously transfer electronically a single artwork very, very quickly. And they'd go back out to transparency, and I remember the day it happened. I was downstairs with what was known as probably or considered to be like the worker bees, not the real creatives upstairs and it was laid out beautiful with all backlighting coming up, and it was just amazing. But you know, they charge like 500 quid an hour for that kind of stuff, just to use that studio and just to walk in there. It's 500 quid just to be in the room. And then we were using Photoshop. I can't remember. There were 8100 120 processors from Apple, so that would give me some idea. I think it was version 3 or version 5 Photoshop. Version 5, not CS5. So we're talking maybe, I don't know, 18, 20 years ago or something. 18 years ago. And I was teaching the pre-press crew how to do things that the Quantel paint box physically couldn't do. And I was showing them how to change colour in a way that was just right. And the Quantel didn't even have the ability to do what you could get Photoshop to do. But none of them would have known it because it wasn't in the menus.
No.
You know what I mean? Like changing colour on a computer is to go into hue and saturation and wang around with the slide bars. And in 15 years, how much more understanding of colour are you going to have by just wanging slide bars? and there is an infinitely better way of doing that, and it's all channel orientated. But unfortunately, you don't get a Bible or a manual about what you can do with channels.
Nobody,
you have to
nobody
have
is
come
telling
from
you
it.
that.
Well, no, because the industry that created people like me, that's gone now. That's gone for a very long time.
Yeah.
And pretty soon, it's not going to be long, only a few more decades, and we're not going to be here anymore.
No, okay.
You know what I mean?
So
And then there'll only be one way to do it. How the developers create the software and you just wang around.
yeah.
Is
But-
that going to be a better place or a worse place?
Well, I'm not there anymore then, so actually I don't mind, but I think it's not going to be much nicer.
Without a tastemaker, this came up in the last podcast because I talked about the film Side by Side, and the comment that came from that film was the absence of a tastemaker. It doesn't matter how many pixels you've got. It doesn't matter how many bits per pixel you've got. It doesn't matter how much RAM and hard drive and processor speed you've got in your computer. Unless you know what to do with it, it's going to be shit, right?
That's what I always say. I say, if I buy the best knife for
Yeah.
for cutting something to eat,
Yeah.
can I cook then?
Does it make you a chef?
Of course not.
No.
If I buy
Yeah.
the most expensive drilling machine,
Mm.
can I hang my own thing then?
No.
Of course not.
No.
No.
Yeah.
So, and that's the same with cameras. If I buy the best camera with the nicest lens, can I make pictures then? Of course not.
No.
So that's what I teach the younger people. I say it's not important what kind of camera you have. It's not important what kind of lens you have. These
Yeah. It's
are
knowing what you're looking at.
These are the most important things.
But this is my observation. I mean, obviously, I've travelled a great deal and been in front of thousands, if not hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people in the last couple of decades. And in the last 6 years, when I get confronted with people who just, oh, Lightroom, and yeah, it's a RAW converter. Yeah, and it's okay, but it is by no stretch of anybody's imagination the best RAW converter. But so many people run around going, oh, it's just the best thing ever, because it's the only thing you know.
yeah.
What did you compare it to when you decided I was going to go with that? You probably didn't. You looked around and you
But
just
that's-
went, yes. Why did you use it? Oh, because somebody showed me. And when they showed you, did you then compare it to something else just to see if it's better? No. It's just I do it because
also-
everybody else does. And there's a comfort in that, isn't there?
I was once in New York with a man who was owning a shop for equipment for sound equipment like CD players and how do you call it, all that stuff. And he had a very nice shop in Utrecht. And we were in New York, and he wanted to go to shops similar as his. And I just bought a few CDs, and we went to a company, to this shop, and they put on this CD, and we were locked up, really locked up in a sort of cabin. And the equipment that we were listening to cost then $500,000. The sound was beautiful, really. We said, okay, we're going to think about it. So we went out and we went to another shop and we gave them the same CD and we listened to it on an equipment of $1 million. But because there was half an hour in between, I couldn't say which one was the best.
Of course.
And that's the same with, like, if you see colleagues with a photo, how good is their screen, how do you say it?
Calibration.
Calibrated.
Yeah.
How, what kind of circumstances are in there, in the place? Are the walls gray, black, or white?
The ambience
Do they
is really
look
important.
into into the sunlight.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many varieties that influence your picture.
Of course. Of course.
And even when your picture is printed in a magazine or what have you, it also depends on in what kind of light you see that magazine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
what's ideal? How good can it be?
Well, the test that I always find that, you know, I use my mum in these examples quite a lot because my mum doesn't really know, you know, she knows a lot about stuff, but she doesn't know anything about what I do for a living. So she wouldn't know a good picture or a bad picture. So if I show somebody one thing and say if I say to you which one's the best, a drunk monkey can fall from a tree and choose the one that's best, right? Because you've got two, you can reference one against the other and make a considered choice. Anybody can do that. You don't need any experience to do it. You just go, yeah, I prefer that one, and it's obvious. Show somebody just one picture and say, is that any good? What do you think of that picture? Don't make it leading. Make it as neutral as possible. So what do you think of this picture? It usually takes somebody quite some time before they'll make an assessment. Yeah, yeah. They know, because it's really, really hard to know whether an image is good when you've got nothing to compare it to. Yeah. But like you're saying about the sound, if you've got half an hour, you can't remember what it sounded like in the first one, and then half an hour you go down and you have 11.
I once worked for a company that was very famous in Amsterdam, that made cigars, that sold cigars, and and you saw these people coming there, and you know, there's a whole like tasting wine or whiskey.
Yeah, routine.
And,
they call it.
Whole thing.
Ritual.
Ritual. That's true. That's the good word. And then that's the same as what did I read? An article this morning about testing some chips, edible chips, and people said, no, you need to have the one with I don't know, kind of meat in it. Then they gave them for a test the vegetarian one, and nobody knew that there was no meat in it, because they couldn't read the package. They couldn't read. They were not influenced by things around on the menu or what have you. And so they thought, no, this is the one with pork or beef meat or what, you know, that kind of things. So, and that's the same with pictures. I mean, when I was working a lot for a female magazine, then the largest in Holland, sometimes I bought a copy that I did work for. I bought one in the south of Holland because I had a job there. And then I bought one in the north of Holland because I had a job there. And because the amount of magazines they made was quite huge, it was printed on different presses. And it was amazing, the difference between the southern one and the northern one. Yeah. So, what is good and what is not good?
But that's the problem. Software can't teach you that. Experience can only teach you that, can't it?
Yeah. And then most people who are only interested in money, they say, let's go in the middle. Not that one, not that one, that one. That's good. It's a pity.
It is. It is.
Has nothing to do with quality.
No, I just think that really with the dependency in nearly every workflow, in every kind of place of work that you see anywhere today, the dependency on technology is greater and greater and greater, and with that you get more throughput, you get more work done, and then obviously you would think then you'd make more money. But then usually what happens then is that because it is so easy to produce and there's less skill needed, then the unit value of the commodity you're making then becomes less. So you have to make more.
You maybe earn more money.
Only for a very short period.
Do you also earn more pleasure?
No, but only for a short period of time do you earn more money, because then once it becomes democratized and anybody can then do what you do, and there's no individual value added, and you can swim quite happily. Because, I mean, you really could you wouldn't be the best wedding photographer or social photographer in the world, but you would be able to swim quite happily and pay the mortgage and earn money by just buying a camera, putting it on auto, watching a YouTube movie on some lighting, and then getting a few presets for Photoshop or Lightroom, and you can quite happily swim quite happily in that market today. You're never going to ever make a huge amount of money, but you can do it as a profession with absolutely zero experience. And only technology makes that happen. And on one hand, you can say, well, that's really good, right? But it doesn't enhance the environment, does it?
But I think there's a lot of difference between being busy earning money and being busy with making the nicest picture that you can make.
Exactly. It doesn't even come close to being the same thing.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Not even
and
come
that's
close.
So are you successful because you earn all this money, or are you successful because you made this beautiful picture? I go for the last.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and one of the reasons why I kind of wanted you here was because you said to me in the early days when we were getting to know each other, you said this statement, and you said you changed your working life because you doubled your fees in one go or something, and you did because there's only a finite number of hours in the day, and when you want to earn more money, what can you do 3 times as much work in the same time? Of course you can't. So and I think most people who have a business, when we've got a self-grown business, reaches this point of critical mass where you end up at a crossroads. You want more money and you know the work is there, but you haven't got physically the time to do it. So what do? You either hire people and keep doing fast food.
Exactly.
Or you double your fees, let go of half of your clients, but then end up making more money doing half the work. Yeah. Then you've got the room to actually get good at what you're doing. Because you haven't got the room when all you're doing is next job, next job, next job, next job. Yes. Where have you got the time to learn anything when you've got that much pressure?
Look in the restaurant world. Why you have a successful restaurant? Why do you have to have another restaurant, and the third one, and after the fourth one you go bankrupt.
And how many people follow that? How many people follow that?
That's happening all the time.
Yeah. Why not just be content with what you have in the beginning?
Why don't you say, okay, I want to earn more money, so I lift up my quality, make it more expensive, then my restaurant will be not as full as it was before, what most people don't like.
Well, I mean, you could apply that to Madeline, this restaurant. I'll talk about it forever. I mean, it's just, it's an experience and a half. But I cannot understand the value for money. The food massively is oversubscribed based on how much I have to pay for it. And if they were to double their prices, I would still eat there the same amount of times. It wouldn't influence my decision to go there at all, even if the bill was twice as much. So don't do that, by the way. If anybody from Madeline is watching, it's like a really shit thing for me to say. But you know what I mean? It's like when something is really, really good, instead of thinking I have to kick people out after an hour and a half because we have to have more than one,
next shift.
Which is a horrible thing when you go to a restaurant and they go, yeah, but we've got to have the table back by 8, and it's like, really? What?
That's terrible, really. You don't want to go to that kind of restaurant.
No, thank you. Yeah. But no, I mean, I did the same with what you have told me a number of times about you doubling the price, and then you wait, don't you, for the reaction?
Yeah.
And then you think, is my whole world going to crumble?
No, the funny thing was, I'm kind of surprised by my own way of reacting on that. I was in big need of more hands because I had so much work. I couldn't do it on my own. Yeah. So I spoke to 2 colleagues and to my accountant, and okay, we found out I needed 2 assistants, and okay, 2 assistants. And then I thought, oh my God, after a few days I thought, okay, then I have this session on Monday, and I need these two assistants. And one of them calls in the morning, yeah, sorry, but yesterday I drank too much and I'm vomiting all the time now, and okay, then I don't want that. I don't want that.
Yeah.
So then I thought, I'm not going to have these two assistants. I'm going to think about it. And then I emptied my agenda for the next Friday, and I called all my clients, and I said, I'm going to raise my price with 100%.
Mm.
Now, many of them said, no, we don't have budget for that. But there were also some, okay, we're not going to do as much as we did, but we still like you.
Yeah.
But also because, I don't know why, I came in another league who were used to pay better.
Yeah.
And so within half a year it was...
Yeah, but doesn't that just prove that success from the business side in what you do with your life is not actually really about your technical ability, it's about understanding the psychology of your environment.
Psychology is very, very...
It's the most important thing. But the thing is, do you learn psychology because you read a book? Or do you learn it because you've practiced it in your life? Do you know what I mean? I don't think you can learn psychology just by going, oh yeah, I've read a book. Yeah, I know all about psychology. Until you've actually put it into practice in your life like that, what you said.
My main thing is intuition, my intuition. Yeah. I really, maybe I should be a sort of guru or something, but I know when I shake hands with somebody that comes to my studio, on the same moment, I know this is going to be a nice session or this is not going to be a nice session. Right. Yeah. Really. Yeah. And I'm not proud of that. It's just I'm glad that it works that way. And then the older you get and the more experience you get, you learn how where does it come from that this session is not going to be nice. Because the person that you're going to take your picture of is also a human being, and maybe slept bad or had a quarrel with his wife or with his secretary or is actually, I don't know.
So have you ever had a situation where someone turns up, your intuition says, this is going to be shit, I'm going to end up doing a bad picture here, but I can tell this dude is probably just having a bad day. Have you ever said, look, today's just not going to work, come back tomorrow?
Yeah.
You've done that?
I had it, yeah. I had...
And I bet they love it that you do that.
Exactamundo, yeah. I had one day a banker came to my studio, and he was high up in the bank, and he came there and he was boasting about all this and that, and you know how my studio is situated. We drink coffee here, and then you have a walk of 5 meters to the place where the most pictures are taken. You walk there, and he sat there, and I put on the light and the camera, and then he sighed, and he said, do you also feel so sad every now and then? I said, yes. And then he started to cry. So I put off the light, the camera, and we talked for 2 hours because he was in my studio. That's also a difference between a studio picture and a location picture, because he was in my place. In my place, he is nobody.
Yeah, he's exposed.
And in his office, he can't afford to sit like this. He should be the main man. And then he said, yeah, I just realized when we were having coffee, I just realized that I actually have a lousy life because I'm successful. But I'm successful, and now that I'm successful, and I asked my children, shall we go in the weekend to do this and that? They said, no, Dad, we don't have time for that because we have to do this and we have to do that. When we needed you, you were not there for us. And that's exactly what his wife also said. And there was I never forget that moment. That was, I was actually glad that this happened. And then, so we didn't make the picture, we were only talking. He came back a week later or so, and the pictures were made in 10 minutes. It was just, but he just needed to let that go. And I felt sort of honored by the fact that he did it with me.
Yeah, well, absolutely, absolutely. But I wouldn't say that would be rare. You know, you sometimes just need some weird freak set of circumstances to play out, and a sliding door moment, and then suddenly. But
that, because I have my way of doing, I had the time to do that, and that's also something. If you only have, you know, I only have a quarter of an hour, so we need to. Crying you can do outside.
We know. I mean, in the great scheme of things, to be brutally honest, I mean that was my biggest fear with going to yoga. It was the same thing, or something very similar. You know, sometimes you got a whole bunch of stuff batting around in your head, and it's just a kaleidoscope of things. And so you've got many different ways of going about dealing with that. And one of them, when you've got the busyness of life and the pressures of life, you just have to keep going. So you just put distraction in front of you, you just keep going and keep going and keep going. And my biggest fear with yoga, in all honesty, was that I might cry. Because I will be forced to be in a position of no distraction, and you're just going to be left in that calm.
What's wrong with crying?
Oh, nothing at all. But not that this is the platform for that. But no, it is actually. But no, I mean, there's nothing wrong in that. But it's just that I wanted to. It's a little bit like, when you're a kid and you've got a little thread sticking out, and you start picking at it, and your grandmother says, "Don't pick it, you'll make a big hole," because you don't know when it's going to stop. And I suppose it's from that point of view when you know deep down that you're just buying time by the busyness and the chaos and running from one fire to another and just dealing with life. Yoga just, I knew what it was going to do. You know what I mean? I knew, because I know a number of people who do it, and they all say the same thing. They all say the base core thing that they get from it. And I just thought, with the chaos that's inside my head half the time, a forced silence and a forced having to confront that without any distraction. I was just a little bit cautious of that. And I did have that when I was there, but it wasn't in any way what I expected it to be, which was a good thing. It wasn't the kind of the tsunami that I thought might come and descend on me. But I actually really enjoyed it. I got a lot from the forced space that I ended up experiencing. And it's, I'm sure the stretching is really good for you and all the rest of the stuff, but that isn't the reason why I want to do it. That's just a given. Of course, it's going to be much better to be more flexible, more supple. But having an hour a day, or 2 hours a day, if you can go twice a day, where you just are dislocated from the busyness and the chaos.
But giving it a chance. And maybe you say, it's not my thing. But if you say it's not my thing because you never tried it?
No, a lot of people would go, it's not my thing because it's just a bit difficult. And the thing for me is I love things that are difficult. If it's difficult, then there's no way I'll walk away from it. If it comes to me easy, then I'm more likely to walk away from it. I mean, the challenge of overcoming something I really like. So like the dog with the bone syndrome, when I can't do something at work, or one of the members says, "Hey, I've got this problem," and I go, "I don't know the answer to this." And so I love. There's nothing better for me than when I get a member say, "I'm doing this job and I'm using the process action, and it's not giving me what I need, and I just want to see what you think about this. Can you help? I love that, because the problem fixing, just because it's difficult, just means to say you have to be a bit more creative finding the solution.
Yeah.
And so I'd say with yoga, if anybody does go and then you go, oh God, shit, that doesn't work for me. It's like I cannot for the life of me see how you can't walk away from a session and not get something. For me, it's just the unplugging of the chaos of life and the pressures of the emails and everything else you have to do. That I just think the going back to work after doing that, you're going to be so much more productive.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So much more productive.
That's what I tell you with the morning things we do.
Yeah.
You say
Yeah.
me, it's really helping.
I'm really looking forward to it, and obviously, I'll keep people up to date with it as I start. But I can see me starting in the next month, because, like I said,
We do it.
the start has got to be where I can do it consistently a lot, so I can learn very quickly. That's what I want to do, because that's for me how I learn.
Do you think that all these people who are watching us mind if I go home?
Yeah, I think it's. I was
Because
just about to say it's kind of.
Yeah.
We have been now doing
Thanks,
this
all.
for Holy of Holies, 2 hours and 20 minutes.
That's what I tell you. Are we in?
So, no, yeah. So 2 fears of yoga: crying and farting. Absolutely, farting. Have you ever heard anybody fart? I've
no,
asked
but no,
other people.
not here. But I smelled it.
You have smelt it.
Yeah,
right? So they've
one
done
day.
silent ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, once you let yourself go, you should have to let it out ages ago. Yeah. Jules, please. Jules, we need to Skype. But Jules, when you're back in the UK, let me know, and then come over here and do this with me.
And go to Motherland.
That would be really cool. So look, man, thanks for coming.
Yeah,
Thanks
for having me.
It's been much more than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
And you have to come back.
Okay, next
So
week?
guys, next week? No, not next week. We'll wait after I've done the yoga, and then we can talk a bit more about the yoga thing.
Okay.
But look, thanks. It's been great.
It was
buddy.
nice.
Cheers, buddy.
Bye-bye.
See you later. Catch you next week, hopefully. What should we do here? I don't know what to do. How should we let this end? We just let this end and kind of let it end, really. See, this is a problem when I have to do it, because when someone's over there, it's so much easier. Because we can just get up, we can walk off, we can turn the mics off, we can do all that kind of stuff. And I'm just going to just...
picture of the screens there.
All right, okay, I'll leave that on so you can take a picture of the after.
I show Maria.
So, see, it looks good, doesn't it? I've designed a good set.
Yeah.
I think it looks quite cool.
I got them.
You got it?
Yeah. But are they...
Yeah, that's being recorded now, so I'll be able to give you a copy of this. So,
okay, nice.
And then that you can do a freeze frame of it. So, anyway, cool. See you later, guys.